Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 3 Ways to Reduce Contact Center Stress. My name is Teresa Chang, and I'm the Marketing Promotion Specialist here at Satori Software. I'm really excited to be hosting this webinar today, and I think it's going to be a great session. So before we jump into the interesting stuff, I want to cover some housekeeping. Throughout our presentation, we encourage you to enter your questions and comments using the questions box to the right. We'll be answering questions in real time after the presentation. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can, but if we don't get through all of them, we'll make sure to follow up with those ones afterwards. Just to let everyone know, this session will be recorded. The link to the recording will be available on Monday via email, as well as on the Satori Software webinar archive page. So joining me today are Jeff Toister, customer service expert and author, Lou Peduto, Director of Data Quality Solutions for Satori Software, and assisting him will be our Solutions Engineer, Jeremy Moritz. If you would like to join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag is callcenterstress. It's actually listed on the screen in front of you. Our Twitter handle is @Satori Software, and you can communicate with Jeff with @Toister. We'd love to have you connect with us and keep the conversation going beyond this event. So, talk a little bit about our first presenter, Jeff Toister. He's the author of Service Failure, The Real Reasons Employees Struggle with Customer Service and What You Can Do About It, which reveals hidden obstacles to outstanding service. Jeff's company, Toister Performance Solutions, Inc., helps clients identify these obstacles so they can improve their customer service. I'm excited to say that 5 lucky audience members will receive a signed copy of Jeff's book for asking the best questions. So, in order to win a book, you can't be shy and you have to submit questions throughout the session. Winners will be announced at the end of the webinar. So, without further ado, I'll hand it off to Jeff to kick things off.
All right, Teresa, thank you very much. There should be just a quick blink of the screen as we do a little behind-the-scenes transitions here. And I'm always cautious with webinars because there's a slight delay from when I see the change to when you see the change. So hopefully you see it now. If you will, bear with me just a moment. Probably see the screens moving. This is just getting us reacquainted here. Going to get the webinar back up, and then we should be ready to go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I apologize for the short transition, but I'm very happy to be here today. So we're going to talk about ways to reduce contact center stress. And in particular, 3 strategies I think that will help you provide faster service, increase customer satisfaction, and reduce errors and stress levels in your call center. And before we get going any further, I do want to share that most of what I'm going to discuss today is these are strategies you can implement right away. They're what we'd call quick hits. I think a little bit later on, Lou's going to share with you some things that are kind of more longer-term solutions. So I'm looking forward to seeing those as well. So let's get started. One thing that I find interesting, there was a poll on ICMI.com, and the question was, what are the top issues for call center agents? And if you look at it, absenteeism is the big one. But I think we know that absenteeism a lot of times is triggered by stress. Not getting enough time from our supervisor. Again, sometimes that contributes to stress. And then stress itself was the 3rd highest one. So stress is either directly a cause or at least it's related in a lot of the types of issues that we deal with. So we know it's a bit of an issue, and it doesn't take any of us working more than a few minutes in a call center to know it's a challenge. So I want to do a little poll here just to get you involved right away. And so bear with me just a moment while I launch it. The poll is just to ask, what stresses out your call center agents? So let me give you just a few seconds to respond, and I think you should be able to click any number of these options. So whatever options might best fit your contact center. So I'll give it a few more seconds, and then I'll close it out. Now, I know this is not an exhaustive list. There's probably more items that might stress out your contact center agents, but at least this gives us a sense of a few of the things that are probably stressing folks out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. Thanks for participating, and let's see if I can share the results. All right, so might be a slight delay, but you should be seeing some results. So high volumes are big, upset customers, and the other one, third one we said was just a lack of knowledge. And I had no idea knowing ahead of time what you were going to select, but I think the three top items that we selected today are probably going to align nicely with our discussion. So we'll come back to that. High contact volumes, upset customers, lack of knowledge. Okay, so we'll make the poll go away, and I want to get started with a little bit of a challenge. And this kind of is related to having the right knowledge in the right place at the right time. So here's the challenge I'm going to give you. It's one that you can do along with me. In a moment, I'm going to put a series of numbers on your screen from 1 to 20. And I'm going to give you 10 seconds to, tracing your finger along the screen, just connect as many of the numbers in order as you can. So starting with 1, you look for number 2, connect that, look for number 3. And just trace your finger on the screen to see how many you can connect in 10 seconds. So I'll give you just a sec for the screen to pop up, and then I'll count down for you. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, time's up. So some of you might still be going, but we'll be on the honor system here that we've stopped to see how far you can get. Now, I tried this exercise myself, and I created the screen, and I think I got about to 10 or 11 by the time 10 seconds are up. And what's the reason? Of course, we're spending a lot of our time searching for information. And we don't have the right knowledge in the right place at the right time. That's what we do. It adds to our stress levels as agents when we have that customer on the other end. And I'm sure it didn't help me counting down, right? Well, imagine your agents, the customers on the other end, if you hold them accountable for average handle time, then that's another issue that's causing a little bit of stress. But see what happens if we make it easier for them to have the right information in the right place at the right time so they're not spending this time searching for the answer. So we're going to do the same activity again. This time, I'm going to do a better job of putting the numbers in the right place to make it easy for you to follow along. So let's try this one more time. And again, the numbers from 1 to 20 will appear on the screen, different order this time. And I'll ask that using your finger, just trace them on your screen, connecting 1 to 2 to 3, all the way up to 20. Let's see if you can get it done in 10 seconds. Here we go. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, now I don't have the magical ability to see through all of your screens, but I imagine this time around, for most of you, you were done well before 10 seconds was up. And so what we're seeing is that having the right information at your fingertips, whether you know it because it's from your experience or you can access it very quickly, allows you to work much more effectively and efficiently. And ultimately, that eliminates one of those things that causes stress. Now, if we look at some real-world applications, what might that look like? What's the impact of knowledge gaps? And from an individual level, we could spend a lot of time searching for information. We know that if we don't have the answer at our fingertips, we're either looking in our CRM system, we're looking in maybe a knowledge base, maybe we put the caller on hold to try to get somebody else who knows. We might even get the wrong information if we're not readily, if it's not readily available. So on an individual level, that can create a lot of stress, but can also create some problems with our customers. Now on a team level, this is kind of interesting. I'm sure a lot of you use skill-based routing, where based on the skill set, training levels, et cetera, you send the calls to the right place. But even when you have a skill-based routing environment, what's very interesting about it is we may still have gaps for individual problems. For example, I worked with a client where one call might go to a particular representative, and that would be a 5-minute call. But if it went to somebody else on her team, that could be a 30-minute call. So think about that gap and how that has a compounding effect on that team's ability to do its job. We want that call to go to the 5-minute person, but because skill-based routing isn't finite enough to separate those small details, there's a good chance the 30-minute person might get the call. So how do we bridge that gap? And this is really what we want to be able to do is quickly bridge knowledge gaps so that all of our reps are in that 5-minute or at least close to it if they get the same call. So that's the first strategy I want to share with you today. How do we make sure that people have the right information, the right place, the right time? And the strategy is based on sharing knowledge. And I want to give you a few quick hit strategies. Beyond an investment in a knowledge base, these are some things you can do fairly quickly. So one is simplifying your updates. If you think about where your agents get information, they probably get multiple streams of email or instant messaging. Some of you might be providing paper documents, but they're all over the place. And if you can simplify that to give them, say, one daily update, one daily bulletin, or sometimes with my clients, it work to just put it in one place in their knowledge base or in their intranet, and that's where our CSRs constantly go. It makes it easier. Another one, we probably do this a lot, designate an expert. So in other words, that person who can handle the 5-minute call, maybe they can do a little team training, or maybe they can make themselves available at key times to handle phone calls internally from people who need their help and wisdom. We also often have display boards to tell us how many calls in queue in our call centers. If we have information that we can share, we can also use those display boards to display updates on pertinent product information or fixes that people have found or any technical issues that people are aware of. Another one that I've seen call centers do successfully is daily huddles. And if you're not familiar with this term, it's a pre-shift meeting. It's also called the stand-up. Basically what it is, it's a 5-minute meeting that just says, here's where our successes yesterday, here's some of the challenges we're facing and some solutions we found, and here's what's to expect for the day to come. It gets everybody on the same page, and it might be a chance for people to share some of that highly technical information. And finally, leverage existing tools, especially in technical companies. What I've seen a lot of times is the marketing team does a great job of putting together tools to educate clients. You can make those same tools, make sure they're available for your call center representatives as well. So those are some quick fixes. They might not fix all of your problems, but if you're constantly trying to educate people to share knowledge, that helps certainly reduce some stress levels. Well, I want to move to the second one, and to do this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a demonstration on what can cause some additional stress for people on the phone. So here we go. Okay, so if you're starting to wonder about the silence, that was intentional. That's another thing that causes stress for both the customer and our call center agents. It's dead air. And we're filling time. The customer's perception is that either it's taking too long or the person's not competent and capable. And being on the phone as a call center agent, you certainly become aware of that. The other side of the coin, though, I think is missed opportunities, not only to change customers' perception, but during that dead air, we miss the opportunity to perhaps build rapport or uncover additional customer needs. And we know when that happens, that can generate even more calls. They have to call back for something else, so the problem isn't fully resolved. Now, for some of us, this isn't too much of a problem. We're really good at the art of conversation. But I've noticed that a lot of us who work in call centers, even though we have conversations each and every day, we're just not as adept at doing that as we might like to be. So I have a very simple technique that you can share with your agents to help anybody become much better and much more adept at building rapport. And the technique is called the 5-question technique. Now, the way the 5-question technique works is it's based on the idea of if you have any set of questions at the ready that you've already thought about in virtually any situation, you can use one of those questions to break the ice and develop a little bit of rapport. So the idea is preparation ahead of time. So when I work with call centers, we actually think of really good questions and we write them down. And again, when we have a little bit of dead air, one of those questions might be really good. So let me give you some examples. If you work in tech support, one of my favorite questions, very simple, is everything else working? I work with a client where when they got in the habit of asking this call, two things happened when they asked this question. One was they demonstrated caring, and the person said to them, no, everything's great, I feel good. So we've kind of cemented the rapport. The second thing that would happen, and this would be a benefit, would the customer would say, you know, I do have this other small issue, and since you're asking, let me tell you about it. It would extend the length of the call, but the back end was they would fix a second issue that was agitating the customer and eliminate a future call completely because we asked if everything else is working. So that's a very simple question. If we're selling products, sometimes things as simple as, is this a gift? We have gift wrapping options, or making sure we get the right address that we're going to send to for the recipient. There's other questions we might ask. This is one of my favorite ones, especially when we get a lot of different types of weather events and other kind of regional news that we know about nationally. A lot of call centers, we talk to people all over the country. One of my favorites was with Hurricane Sandy that happened quite a few months ago now. One of my clients, when they would talk to people from the New York and New Jersey area, they would ask, you know, how are you affected by the storm? And it filled the dead air with just a little bit of humanity, if you will. Some people would say, you know, my family's fine, my house is fine, thank you. And other people would say, it's been tough going. Let me tell you a little bit more. It was able to make that call go a little bit smoother, but create a much stronger connection with the customer. And we know when we have a good connection with the customer, we feel like we're on the same level. That's something else that can cut down on stress. So whatever questions are appropriate to your industry and your customers, if you help your agents write at least 5, a very short list, it's almost certain that one of them is going to be good in just about any situation. All right, so the third strategy I'm going to share with you right up front. And the third strategy is to reduce multitasking. I think we know that multitasking is a big part of working in a call center. We're trying to listen to the customer, navigate through the CRM, remember product information, policy information. And I know the truth is a lot of our agents have email open or their instant messaging open. In fact, in many call centers today, we found that one screen isn't just enough. We need at least 2 screens now. It's almost like razor blades from years ago. Maybe we'll have 3 or 4 screens in the future. I don't know. But multitasking can actually generate stress as well. It can also make it easy for us to make errors, and it can slow us down, even though we feel really, really busy. So to demonstrate that, I want to do a simple example with you. And if you've never seen this before, it's called a Stroop test. So here's the small challenge I'm going to have to see if we're able to do 2 things at once. I've got 3 stages to this challenge, and each one's going to go from easy to a little bit harder, and you'll get to experience what happens when we truly try to multitask. So the first step in the challenge I'm going to ask you to do, when I say go, you see the names of colors written on the screen. All I'm going to ask you to do is say the names of the colors out loud along with me. All right, are you ready? Go. Red, blue, orange, green, black, purple. All right, that should be pretty easy. Hopefully you didn't have too many challenges with that. Now, I'm going to put a new set of colors on the screen, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Read the names of the colors out loud. The difference this time is instead of in black print, they're going to be written in different colored print. Now, because with a webinar, there's a slight delay, and there will be maybe maybe half a second or a second between when I click the screen and when you actually see it. I'm just going to allow you to start whenever it shows up on your screen. So again, just read out loud the names of the colors that come up on your screen. Okay, probably not too hard, but if you were paying careful attention, you may have felt just a little thing going on in your brain where the color that it was printed in might have upset your concentration just a tiny bit, but you still did okay. Well, now we're going to do a third test, and this one's going to be a little bit harder. I'm going to put another set of colors on the screen, and they're going to be printed in different colored print as well. And this time, instead of reading the word, I'm going to ask that you say out loud the color the word is printed in. So the example would be, you see the first word here, the word is green, but it's printed in purple. So you would say out loud, purple. Once again, we have a small delay from when I advance it on my screen and when you actually see it. So I'm going to ask you to start this once it appears on your screen. But again, instead of reading the word, say out loud the color the word is printed in. Here we go. All right. Now, I know you felt that. And what you were feeling was your brain trying to process more than one conscious thought at a time. And the reality is our brain only has the capacity to give its full focus to one thing at a time. And so when we try to do more than one thing, our brain it slows us down, and we're more likely to make errors. So if you try to do this at normal pace, you probably flubbed a little bit. Or if you tried to be careful about how you did it, you probably went a lot slower. And it causes just a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of stress when we try to multitask. Well, how does this show up in call centers? Well, if we all work in call centers, I think we know it. But let me give you an example. I want to share with you a real-life service failure that was primarily due to people multitasking. So the scenario was that when I'm not doing webinars or helping companies improve customer service, one of the things I do for fun is I like to play soccer. And it's a men's recreational league that I play in, so none of us are going to turn pro anytime soon. But what happens is at the end of the season, the next season begins generally the very next week, and the league will post the schedule on their website on Sunday. Well, one Sunday, it was time for the new season to begin, and I didn't see the schedule posted, so what I did was I sent a little email. So I'll give you a second to read the email that I sent to see if I can get my schedule. All right, pretty straightforward, right? Pretty easy. Can you please send me a copy of the schedule? Here is the response I received, word for word. Now, there's a few things wrong with this email. No greeting, no salutation, none of the pleasantries we normally like to include. But there's an even bigger problem, and if you haven't spotted it yet, I'll draw your attention to, at the very top it says sent Sunday, June 3rd, and now look at the dates on the schedule. So apparently, even though I wanted to know where I'm going to be, they're informing me on where I've actually been. Not as helpful. So this is kind of a miss, right? And I was thinking, well, that's kind of frustrating. But I also realized, hey, I didn't say which schedule I was looking for, so let me clear that up. I quickly fired back another email. Okay, now we're on the same page, right? I'll share with you once again, word for word, the response that I received. Now, we could debate this, but I'll tell you from my perspective, the emoticon did not help. In fact, I was quite a bit annoyed by this email. Now, if we want to understand why we got this email, it wasn't that the person was being a jerk, but truly I've seen where they work and how they work, and it's due to multitasking. So I have to take you behind the scenes in this place where I played soccer so you understand why they would send this type of email. Responding to emails wasn't their only responsibility. And on a Sunday afternoon, there would be leagues that would be running at the time, so the office would be open, there'd be people there. And not only do they have email to respond to, but the person who would be responding to emails would also be at a counter, or a walk-up counter. And to get to the fields, you actually had to walk past this counter. So even if you didn't have any business, people would say, hello, how's it going today? Hey, good to see you again. And a lot of people did have business, so they'd stop at the counter to get their schedule or make a payment or fill out a form or whatever the case may be. So these emails were being done in between serving people at the counter. Now, the other thing the person had to do was answer the phone, and the phone would ring quite a bit with people asking questions, et cetera, et cetera. So we had 3 channels this person was managing: email, phone, and in person. And when we start managing multiple channels, what we often do, if we don't have a lot of training or skill in this area, is we start trying to cheat a little bit. And you can see that in the responses this person was sending. They didn't really give enough time to think about what I needed and what I was asking. Instead, because they were multitasking, they were just trying to fire off the email as quickly as possible. In fact, if you see, this last email was sent at 4:53. We had an entire email exchange, 2 emails apiece, within less than 30 minutes. So they were quick, but the multitasking prevented them from actually helping me or answering my question. So that's the example, and you had a chance to experience what it feels like and how it creates a little bit of anxiety when we're in a multitasking environment. So how do we reduce that? We can't eliminate it completely, but how do we reduce it and still get stuff done? And so I want to share with you a few examples here. One is focus our agents on one task at a time. And I'll give you an example of that. A lot of times we talk about what do we want to do in between calls? What work can we give them to fill that void? And I had a client that had reps working on emails, and they would actually still get a lot of, this was a couple of years ago now, they would get a lot of their orders coming in through fax, so they would try to key in the fax orders. And what they realized, though, is they were making a lot of errors on emails and the faxes they were trying to key in, and they were also trying to, or struggling to build rapport when they would stop in the middle of an email and have to answer the phone. Well, we made a small adjustment and improved both speed and accuracy, and it also allowed them to be more focused when they were on the phone, and that was to take a small group of people off the phones entirely, have them focus on the non-phone tasks, and it increased the volume for the people on the phone and allowed them to take more calls. What they found is everybody worked better when we did that, and if the call volume spiked, it was pretty easy for a short increment of time to take one person off of email or faxes and have them work on the phones. When that spike came back down, they sent them back to the other activity. And the reason of doing that, of separating that, is when you have them try to do both, again, they often are more likely to make errors or go a lot slower because they're trying to do so many different things in between calls. One of the other things that we can do is just make agents aware of distractions. If you're following along on Twitter, that hashtag call center stress, a little bit later in the hour, I'm going to send out a tweet with a link to that Stroop test. You can share that with your agents as well. And I found once you make people aware of the distractions that come with multitasking, people can take steps on their own to minimize distractions. And some of the things I've seen people do is indicate that they're busy so that they're not getting a lot of IMs, and they're not getting distractions from their coworkers, shutting down or minimizing email when they're on the phone with a customer and only coming back to email when they're not engaged with someone. In other words, when people are aware of it and they know how it can hurt their productivity and cause stress, they can do something about it. The other thing that's kind of interesting is just changing assignments so that we can match our volume, but also add variety. And so we found, we'll go back to the example I gave where people were working on different assignments and trying to stay focused on that. If you move people to different assignments, it makes it a little bit more interesting, but it also reduces the urge to multitask. And what I mean by that is, the longer you stay focused on something, unless it's truly engaging, your mind will naturally start wandering. In fact, a lot of us probably work that way, right? We've got our email open, we have our Facebook open if we're honest with ourselves, we have other things open throughout the day, and the longer we stay focused on one activity, the easier it is for us to drift over to Facebook or drift over to email or drift over to something else. But if we allow our reps to focus on one assignment for a short period of time and then move to a different assignment and focus on that, you're going to get a lot more attention paid. So 3 simple strategies, things you can do right now, ways to reduce contact center stress. That's it for me, and I'm going to turn it back over now to Lou, who's got a little bit more for you on data quality.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, for all those helpful stress-reducing strategies. Before we move on to our next speaker, don't forget to submit your questions. Participate and you could win a signed copy of Service Failure. It's that simple. Now, I would like to introduce Lou Peduto, Director of Data Quality Solutions for Satori Software. Lou has over 25 years of experience in helping customers solve data-related business problems with software vendors such as First Logic, SAP Business Objects, and now we're pleased to say with Satori Software. Lou excels at helping organizations gain real business benefits through the thoughtful application of products and services to resolve key service problems which result in better customer service. Well, I'll now hand it off to Lou, who will talk about the importance of contact data quality.
Thank you, Jerisa, and Jeff, thank you as well. That was great. I found the numbers thing very interesting. It was a little difficult with the colors. My screen's going to pop up a bit, but I'm kind of focused today on the two sides of stress in a call center. There's stress on behalf of the employee that's working for the company that's trying to service the customer, and I come at it sometimes from the other side of it. The customers are usually stressed as well, and they're trying to get a handle on what they're trying to either receive, if it was a part they ordered, if they're trying to order something, and a lot of this starts in really in our company around the address and contact information. And Jeremy, you could move it forward if you could for me, please. So, you know, callers provide their addresses accurately. After all, they really want to receive their order. It really is a myth. You would be surprised at how many times small little things happen, especially with the address information, that cause service issues, shipment issues, and poor customer service in a sense, when it's really neither the representative's fault or the customer's fault. It's just trying to match it up and like get everybody to just take their time and figure out what they need to do to solve the problem. I'm going to show you a few things today. We're going to take no more than 10 minutes as I go through this, and there's going to be a little bit of a demonstration at the end where Jeremy will pop in and show you a few examples of how this works regarding customer data, address data, and contact data, and what we do and how we can help you with that. Go ahead, Jeremy. So a couple of things reality check-wise. Only 64% of the identifying information in customer records was accurate. I spent a lot of time in CRM systems and managers that run the call centers and moving data, and when we clean it and check it, this is generally a pretty accurate percentage, and we'll talk a little bit about how that happens as we move forward. 1 in every 40 keystrokes results in an uncorrected error. There's a lot of data on this. There's a lot of call centers that are out there, and the converse is that is if we can help reduce the number of keystrokes, we can impact the number of errors that you're seeing in the database and in some of the applications that you're doing order entry or whatnot. The quality of the stored U.S. addresses declined 17% per year. USPS. A lot of the referential data that we get actually from the United States Postal Service. As an example, we have access to every deliverable address in the United States, and I can tell you it's a living, breathing file. We get it updated twice a month, actually, and there are things that do change. They put up another apartment complex. The mayor of the town that he lived in for 30 years passes away, and they name it, Lou Peduto Avenue. The other thing that happens quite frequently to your clients and customers is they move, and we have ways of dealing with that and helping you with it. Okay, left unchecked, duplication rates of up to 20% are common. A duplication would be me calling the same company 6 times to order different things and having 7 Lou Pedutos in there, and what impact that has on how you can service me and how you can ship me information. And I may have called on vacation to get something I needed for my computer, but that wasn't, I needed it delivered there, but that wasn't where I live. And a lot of machinations of that kind of data problem can manifest itself if it's left unchecked. Go ahead, Jeremy. The next one. I think it's coming. There it is. Okay. So what happens? Why is the contact data not accurate? If you really think about it, obviously there's a big difference between 225 Main Street East versus 252 Main Street itself. When we look at this data, the majority of the errors are mostly due to things like they forget to give the apartment, or they forget to give you the pre-directional, East Main Street or Main Street East. Small little things like that, because just like sometimes your employees are multitasking, the customer on the other end is multitasking. They're in a hurry. They need to get back to work. They're online at work. They want to get off real quickly, and they're just rushing through it. So they might not even remember the basic information of where they live, and it happens all the time. So what our position is on this, and where we think it's the best place to embed a solution, is right at the point of entry, whether it's a call center application or a website. If there was a way that you could set up some type of gatekeeper that could help both those scenarios out, where everybody's stressed and trying to hurry through the order, where we can just put a little bit of checks and balances in there so that we can make sure that the information gets entered correctly, it's found to be very helpful, obviously. A couple of things that it does is it does relieve stress. If I can front load the city name Ronkonkoma for somebody, for a rep in a call center, they don't have to type it. That makes life better. If I can pre-populate fields, if I can give them a suggestion on what to ask the client because the address is not correct to them, and say, you know, I'm showing that you're a high-rise. Do you have an apartment number? It works great, because the converse of that is they enter it into the warehouse or the database or the order entry system, and there's really no way to fix it unless you call me back and say, Lou, we kind of got to figure out where you live. We ran this, and it's coming up that it's a bad address. I need to confirm. I have you at Main Street. Oh, I actually live at Main Street East. And we help with that. So embedding applications that can help support trusted data entry can help you get your products and services out to your clients, and it can also help relieve stress in the environment of the call center, hopefully save some keystrokes. And where it especially helps is in if you're a seasonal business where you have a lot of temps that come in because it's a retail application, and Christmas is gearing up and you have 40 temps, and these checks and balances embedded in your data entry process are very helpful in making sure that people that are kind of temporary, who aren't familiar with your system, it can save them time and save them from making mistakes. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to, or one more slide. I'm sorry, Jeremy, one more slide. I forgot about the last one. One other myth, too, that I run into a lot, and I hear it almost every time, is that incomplete address information can be fixed in the shipping room or by the shipping company. A lot of companies, like let's say UPS, will scan the address if the gentleman who's in the truck is trying to deliver it. And sometimes through their technology that they own for their company, they can find the apartment number. The problem with that is it's a good thing because they do deliver it, but they do charge you for that service. All of them do, but it was never fixed on the back end. So the bad address is still really sitting in the database back at corporate, where you might run marketing campaigns or you might ship again. And if it never gets fixed, it's just a repeatable mistake, and it's a repeatable billing process for UPS or FedEx to do so. So if you can catch it at the point of entry, it'll stay right and it'll be right. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy, and he's going to give you some live examples of how we kind of leverage this, some screens that we've mocked up to just give you an idea of how this would work and what it would look like.
Thanks, Lou. So I'm going to black out the slide here and bring up a little bit of a demonstration. So let me find my mouse. So in a lot of customer-facing websites, they have to go in, they have to manage their account, or they put in their address when they're ordering something. And one of the things people tend to be in is a hurry. They're hurried to get that order in before the day's end so that it gets shipped out that day, or they've missed a birthday and they need to get the thing delivered by Friday, otherwise they're going to be in the doghouse. So they're going in and they've got to fill in their address. So we're leaving it up to the customer to ensure that they put in their address correctly, even though they're in a hurry, or one of the things that will happen is they'll type it in correctly. So I'm going to go in here and just type in an address that I live at. I'm not really caring about any casing or standardization, and I'm going to go in and type it in how I think my address is. So I'm going to type in 3 Herman Museum Circle, Houston, Texas. And again, as a sample, I'm just going to click verify, but this might be where they hit save or they hit next in the order process. And this is where your website can take control and do and verify the address. So we're going to verify this, and we're going to see the output. And this, again, is just displaying it visually. This could be all done behind the scenes or pop-ups. But we can see that it's been standardized. Originally, I didn't have any kind of casing. I now have everything cased correctly. I was missing drive, so I thought I just lived on Circle, but it's actual Circle Drive. I didn't have my zip code. I now have a full zip code with the zip +4. However, one of the things that we also are able to provide, as Lou mentioned, using the USPS referential data, we're able to identify that this is an apartment complex. It's a high-rise, and we're missing secondary information. So this is where, if you've all filled out those forms online where you've got a little asterisk next to address, city, state, maybe not the zip code because we can do that for you, you would stop the user and put an asterisk next to the apartment number and say, please fill out your apartment. So I can go back in here now this time because I've been told that I'm missing that and re-verify or update my address. Ultimately, you do have to leave it up to the customer to be able to enter it in as they wish. But here now, I can see I've got 3 Herman Museum Circle Drive, again, apartment 6405. I get a different zip +4 than I did before, and now I can see that I matched and all components are confirmed. So it's a valid delivery point according to that referential data that we have access to from the USPS. Really ensuring that the future integrity of your CRM and that order process or that interaction that you're going to have with that client, you're going to get whichever piece you have going to that individual. And that's just an example of, you know, a customer-facing interactive point of entry address validation. Now let's take this one other direction. You have an internal CRM. We were talking about call center. So I've got my, this is a fake CRM system up in front of you, all my customers in there, and I get a new customer. Lou calls me up and says, I want to place an order. My wife's birthday is on Saturday and I forgot to get her flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and add in Lou's contact information. I'm going to start an order. Lou P, I'm going to start typing in his address. Oh, here's my point of entry address correction. So I'm going to say, Lou, what's your city and state?
I live in Malvern, Jeremy.
Malvern. Okay, I'm going to start typing Malvern. And look, I only have to type 4 characters, and I'm already at Malvern. There's 5 states there. I don't even have to ask him the state. I can just hit enter. Lou, what's your address?
I live at 11 Anthony Drive.
And there we go. I have the full address right here, very interactive. I only had to type in 11 ANT. I hit enter, and now I can get my review screen if I'd like, and I can see that it's a successfully validated address. I can see all the components, and now with my keyboard, I'm never touching the mouse. I guess I'm just using it to display for you. But I hit send, and it brings it right into my CRM. No.
The other point there, I'm sorry, Jeremy. The other point that he just made is a very important one. The way this is built is if we don't touch the keyboard and we fill the information in that we know that's correct, and I'm telling them it's Anthony, clicking on it, it's going to be correct. See, we're reducing the number of times they actually have to type it. We basically did that with a mouse. Go ahead, Jeremy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so I got Lou's order in. I take care of that. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add another customer. I go in and I'm going to add in John Smith. I'm talking to John on the phone, and this guy, he's given me some address that I have no idea. He gives me an address, Waukesha, Wisconsin. I start scratching my head, and I don't want to feel like a dummy and ask him how to spell that, so I'm just going to start typing what I think. So I get the W-A-U-K, Waukesha. So I look through my list. Here's the list out of all the cities in the country. We're able to narrow it down. I can select Waukesha, and now I can ask him for the remaining part of his address. And he tells me 1111 Delafield. And again, type in that, D-E. And I've already been able to narrow this down to Delafield. And at this point, I can go in and I can select one of the suite numbers if he set it to me right away. But if he didn't give me a secondary number, this is where I can, as we were listening earlier, ask an additional question and say, I see this as a high-rise. Do you have a suite number available for me? So he gives me a suite of number 314. I can type that in as well. It's John Smith, so it's not one of these two. So I can select the one that doesn't have a name associated with it. And there we go. I've got a full, complete, valid address. Now, say, for example, he didn't give me the 314, and I just select the Delafield. Again, with the mouse or keyboard, I can control that. Now on the bottom, I see that it tells me I'm missing secondary information. If as the call center person, I try to commit this into the CRM, I can put in a checks and balance to display a warning that asks me, that or tells me I'm missing second unit information. Are you sure? So again, ensuring that data quality is going to be entered in, I can say no, I can prompt myself and go back in here and type in the 314. Now I send it into the application. John Smith has a full, complete, and standard address into your CRM system ready to go, and you know that any reporting, any mailings, any packaging that you're sending to this individual is going to get to a correct address and delivery point.
Great. That was awesome, Jeremy. Thank you. Hopefully that gave you some visual perspective on why it's very important to try to do these applications up front at the point of entry. If they were all to be committed, those bad addresses, it costs money to fix them on the back end. So with that, I appreciate all your time today, and I'll turn it back over to you, Teresa.
Great. Thanks, Lou, for providing those statistics, and Jeremy for that. Those two quick demos. It really does help to actually see what's actually happening. So just a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be available along with the presentation slides on our website at www.satorisoftware.com. I see that a number of questions have already come in. Please continue to enter your questions in the questions box in order to become eligible to win one of 5 signed copies of Jeff's book, Service Failure. Like I mentioned before, if we can't get through all of the questions, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. All right. Now let's get started on your questions. Let me pull this box out really quick. All right, so the first question is, what's the best method to ensure callers are providing correct contact info?
I guess that would be me, I guess, Teresa, right?
Yeah.
Well, we show that. I mean, you know, I'll call it a gatekeeper, but there needs to be some solution or technology because there's access to all this data. There's data everywhere that can confirm what is being entered at the point of entry. So why not leverage it and stop them from entering in the bad data? So the quick, easy answer to that is find a solution, hopefully from Satori, that will help them not make mistakes like that and prompt them to correct it at the point of entry so it doesn't get populated in strategic data centers that are going to take action on bad information.
Great. Thanks, Lou. The next question is, 33% of participants answered that repetitive work is what stresses other call center agents most. Jeff, do you have any suggestions to alleviate that stress?
Yeah, I do. You know, one of them we talked about was adding some variety and focus. So in other words, if we can alternate work assignments, you know, focus on one thing for a little bit, move to the second thing. That isn't always possible, or sometimes it's cumulatively just repetitive. So a couple other things that can help. A second one is having shared or team goals in terms of productivity, in terms of error rates, et cetera. And I've seen team goals because what happens when you have a team-oriented goal is you find people encouraging each other. And that feeling of we're all in it together, even in the contact center. You know, I've seen some call centers recently where they, as a team, they talk about these goals a lot. And they're always encouraging each other. That really decreases the stress level but increases the enthusiasm for the work, because you don't want to let your teammates down. And the last one is making sure that it matters. One of the biggest causes of call center stress is because we don't have control over a lot of the things that we're trying to do. For example, I had to have a computer repaired, and it was shipped to Memphis, Tennessee, but the person I was talking to about the status of my repairs was in Atlanta, and the part it needed was being shipped from Taiwan. So the person in Atlanta had no control over any of those factors, yet she had to deal with me, the person missing the computer. The more we can involve the team in problem solving and finding ways to do better with the parts that we can control, the more it makes them feel like what they're doing matters. And data quality is an excellent example. You know, there's a lot of aspects that we can't control, wrong information, keying the wrong information, et cetera. From the customer perspective, from our perspective, we could talk about ways internally to make sure we're asking the customer the right questions, making sure that we're not making those errors on our end, and that allows people to feel like they have some degree of control over improving it. So I think those things will help overcome the repetitive nature of work.
Great. So the next one is, I think this one is for Lou. Someone wrote in, sometimes an address can be Googled and it says it's good, it's a good address, but USPS and UPS says it's a place with no house. How can we avoid this when putting in the address into our CRM system to make sure it's good?
So you said that sometimes the UPS and the USPS said it's not good? Or I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. UPS?
Yeah. So, yeah.
UPS. Okay. Well, that's kind of that point back to a high-rise, I guess is the best example. There isn't an apartment building on a street that isn't the correct address. There's, in fact, my brother lives in an apartment building in Boston, and it is on Newbury Street. The problem is there's 50 apartments there, and if I don't have that suite number, the apartment number, yeah, it's correct. That building does exist there, but I don't have the necessary information to deliver it, because the UPS is obviously either has a box or something that they want to bring to my brother's apartment, but they don't know which one out of the 50 he lives at. So therefore, yeah, the address is correct, but it's not complete. So there's a difference between correctness and completeness, and we have these files that we provide that can prompt you to let you know, hey, wait a minute, you're dealing with an apartment here. We need a little bit more. There's got to be a suite number. We can even tell them if it's a business or if it's a residential address. Like, I don't know about you, Jeff, but some of us guys that travel a lot, we work from our homes. I do work for Satori, but when I have stuff delivered to me, it's a house, and it may have it'll come to Satori, but it's my house. So sometimes there are ways to help give you more completeness in the data, and that also obviously helps with UPS and deliverables.
Yeah, it definitely helps sending a package to an actual recipient instead of an apartment building. So the next question is, how do you balance having agents ask questions during dead air periods with extending handling time for customers that give long responses? This is to you, Jeff.
It's funny because average handle time is a stressor for agents as well. In other words, if we're holding individual agents accountable for average handle time, that in itself causes stress. But to get to the question, I think we've got to look at it a couple of different ways, because a lot of that stress is unnecessarily generated. One is I want to look at what the goal is. Is the goal resolving the issue on the first call, or is the goal making the calls faster? And what we found is that when you really look carefully, if the agents are trying to rush through the call because of that stress level, they actually generate a lot of callbacks. In fact, the average call center only resolves calls on the first call, problems on the first call 70% of the time, which means 30% of those calls require a second call. So if your average handle time, let's say, is 5 minutes, but you don't resolve the problem, then that call may have taken 5 minutes, but the problem takes 10 minutes if they have to call a second time. So there's average handle time in that sense is a little bit misleading. I worked with a company recently where they stopped holding their individual agents accountable for average handle time and focused instead on first call resolution. And they were surprised to find that first call resolution went up, but average handle time, of course, they still tracked it for forecasting reasons. Average handle time did not go up. It just took the stress away. So it's interesting that you take the stress away, it doesn't actually significantly impact it in many cases. Now, there is one other caveat, and that's call control technique. And this is specific techniques in training to help agents move the call to a successful resolution. And with that long-winded customer, one of the techniques that's very effective is the person does have to come up for air at one point in time. You want to demonstrate your listening, but you redirect the conversation back to the problem at hand and the customer's reason for calling. And there's some techniques that you can train your reps on how to do that. Many reps simply are unskilled in that, so they just let the customer continue to talk, and in an effort to be polite, they actually give signals like, uh-huh, or, oh, really, that encourage the customer to keep going. So there is the call control thing, but I think it's interesting. You get more bang for your buck by removing some of that stress, and we've seen some early signs that average handle time doesn't really go up. You just get fewer calls.
Huh. That's interesting. So it looks like we have time for one more question. This can go to both Jeff and Lou. How does data quality overall relate to contact center stress?
You go first, Jeff.
Okay. Sure. Oh, I appreciate that. That was very gracious of you. So from an individual agent perspective, you just think about what does bad data do, or and what do errors do. One of course, it inconveniences customers. So we have angrier customers, and that certainly raises stress levels. Something gets shipped to the wrong address, or we'd had an incomplete address, so that package went to the apartment building but didn't get to the recipient. That's an angry customer. It also causes rework, and customer service agents don't like having to do something over and over and over again, because it starts to feel like whatever we do is not going to matter, and that's kind of a bad feeling to have. But if you've worked in a call center, I certainly have, it's something that can cause a lot of stress. And the last piece is making all of those corrections creates extra work in addition to extending the call. I think we all know that when we have to do the address verification with a customer on the phone, if we get everything right out of the gate, it makes things a lot more smooth for everyone. So from my perspective, those are 3 ways that doing that reduces stress immensely.
Great. And from my 20 years of doing this and working with call centers, not only the person that owns and runs the call center for the organization, but the people that work there, when we're able to hand them predefined correct address information that they don't have to type, and I can reduce the keystrokes, and they can visually see it and click and place it into the screen, that saves keystrokes, that saves time. And as we just said, they're monitored by order per minute or per time per order and things like that. So anything that we can do to front load that data with all the referential data that we have to help them resolve that is very helpful to them and less stressful. The other part about it is everybody wants to do a good job. I mean, there's they all want to get it right. We do training sessions with what happens when the address doesn't get corrected right, and downstream they're going to get another call from somebody that didn't get their product. So I think it's a nice safety net. I've never met one call center person that didn't embrace the fact that there was kind of this checks and balances involved so that this doesn't happen. And I think it relieves stress on both sides. Again, I don't want to emphasize too that the customer's on the other end, and you're getting through his address quickly, and you're getting to the point where he's doing the order. It helps a lot. And I just think it's a part of assisting them and helping them preload a bunch of information that's very useful.
Well, great. Thank you to both you guys, Jeff and Lou, for taking the time and answering our attendees' questions. It looks like we've gone a little bit past the hour. I want to take this time now to announce our 5 winners of Jeff's signed book. And the 5 lucky individuals who will receive service failures are Tyler Williams, Christine Kellen, Teresa Nelson, Kiana Fye, and Sarah Chippy. Congratulations to all our winners today. So on that note, I would like to thank you for joining us today. If you could please fill out our survey after the presentation, that will help us improve future webinars. You will be receiving an email that will alert you to the on-demand status of today's event. So on behalf of our guests, Jeff Toister, Lou Peduto, Jeremy Moritz, and myself, Teresa Chang, we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Bye.